I have my instrument panel glued in. I think the vertical orientation of the panel looks a whole lot better than the slanted orientation that the plans had. I'm not really sure what the designer was modeling after when he signed the plans, but this vertical looks a whole lot better. So with that, it's now time to add my side rails. Now, I spent a fair amount of time cutting these to the right shape so that there would be very minimal gap on each end. I also had to bevel the back to account for the slope in the rear cockpit former, and I also had to bevel each end to account for the sloping of the cockpit sides. But they all fit fairly well now, or they both fit fairly well now. There is they don't sit very well without weight on them, but there is going to be a little bit of a gap on each end. Then that will be taken care of later, be filled in and smoothed out later. So now it's time to glue these in. I'm going to use Canopy glue for this because it has a very long working time and that glue dries clear. And I'll just end up using my sanding blocks to add as weights, and that will ensure that both side rails are in the same plane with each other. To glue these in, I've changed my mind. Instead of using the Canopy glue, was it the 560, I think it's called? That stuff's a little too runny. I need something that had a little more body so that it wouldn't run off the edge right here. And so I'm going to use some Mod Podge in a squeeze bottle. And what I'm going to do is just put a little strip of glue here, lay it in place, and then I'm going to go back and use thin CA to glue in both of the ends. As I was working on this video, it occurred to me that I should have sanded a little recess into the fuselage sides to accept the side rails. About 1/8 of an inch would have been good. As it stands now, they sit a little bit too high, but at the time, I just didn't think about it. Got a couple of balsa pads to protect the softer balsa for the side frames. I've drawn a line which represents the fiberglass framework that I'm going to have. Remember, on the 1-to-1, it has a framework which encompasses the canopy and part of the fuselage. It opens to the right. Mine's not going to open, but I am going to have this fiberglass framework that kind of blends the canopy in with everything. So that's drawn out, and then what I'm going to do is just add little strips of balsa. Again, I'm just trying to fill in this depression. I think I'll have 4 pieces of balsa, something like this, and then one to go in the middle, and then finally a 4th one kind of about the same area. And I'm just going to glue these in with some thick CA and then start sanding. I'm going to start with some 36 grit sandpaper. Try to make quick work of the rough stuff. So right along the bottom, it seems to fit fairly well, but it looks like I took off a little too much here. And I think the canopy would work, but I still think I want to go ahead and add a little bit more back here and just try to get a little more of a vertical line right here instead of a slant. Before I try to fine tune this side, I'm going to work on this side because this rail, it's pushing the canopy out a little bit, and that might be deforming this side a little bit. So I'm going to work on this side, and when I do this side, I'm going to try to make this one a little more vertical. See if it helps. Yeah, so shaping and sanding more vertically did a much better job. Now this is pretty much supported completely all along the rail. And I think this side's gonna work real nice. Now I need to go over and kind of fix this side. All right, the left side fits a lot better now. As you can see, I added about 3/16 worth of balsa. And that gives it a pretty snug fit, just enough room for some glue. For filling in the gaps that I had on each end, I used epoxy micro balloons for that. I taped off underneath the bottom so it wouldn't drip down into the cockpit and the other areas. I used the white micro balloons this time. It's the deluxe material balloons. I use that since the rails are white. It make it a little bit easier to blend the micro balloons in with paint. The tape I use, this is frog tape. It's very similar, if not the same stuff as the Tamiya plastic modeling tape. And I used it to create a dam on this side because the epoxy micro balloons wanted to drip down. But the good thing about this tape is that even with the epoxy, you can still peel the tape away easily, very easily. And so you have a nice little dam. This will be easy to shape. Same on this end. So this tape works very well. It's very nice. It doesn't have a very high tackiness to it. It holds, but it doesn't hold too much. So it's really nice. I didn't have to do that on this side because of the extra balsa that I added. One of the things I need to do before I can glue Canopy on is paint the anti-glare shield, and also this section back here. The canopy covers it, but you're still going to be able to see this. Now the anti-glare shield is going to be flat black. That'll be pretty easy. This part right here will match up the paint that comes along the top of the turtle deck. I picked out my scheme that I want to paint. And so you're going to get a little bit of a preview of how I'm going to paint this kind of a metallic blue color. I think it's really cool color. I've done it before with a much smaller SU-31. It's pretty neat. I'm going to try it again with this model. So I've got the canopy, or I'm sorry, the cockpit all masked up. And what I need to do first is prime it, make sure everything is kind of a uniform base, and then I'll paint. Got the model set up outside for priming. It's not exactly a great day to prime. A little foggy and the sun's going down, but I only need to do a little bit, so I'm going to try to knock it out. Because it is such a small amount, I'm going to be using a rattle can, spray can primer. Try to knock this out quick. I'm not going to set the video up for this, so I'll show you the results. Alright, got that done pretty quick. About 5 minutes maybe. It's still a little bit wet. And this is probably as far as I'll take it tonight. I was going to try to paint some tomorrow, but the weatherman says it's going to be windy tomorrow, and since I do my painting outside, I may not get a chance to start on it for a few days. What you think, Ratty? You like that? And I'm using an artist acrylic, and again with the Iwata HPM2 airbrush. The artist acrylic is not quite a complete flat black, but I think it'll look pretty good. And even if it doesn't, even if it's too shiny, I can go back over it with an ink, which is definitely a flat. Black's done, and it looks pretty good. It's probably a little shinier than it should be if it were an actual one-to-one anti-glare shield, but I'm going to leave it just the way it is. I think it looks okay. So now, to move on to the aft part. So what I intend to do here is put a silver base coat and then a Tamiya clear blue over top of that. And that's how I've got that kind of translucent blue that you saw on that SU-31. So I'm going to try that again here. For the silver base, I'm using an artist acrylic. And this stuff usually is a gel. It's like a gel. It's very thick, so it has to be reduced quite a bit. I usually start with a one-to-one, one paint, one reducer, and go from there. And my reducer is 75% alcohol. Well, that's about 3/4 of that mixed with distilled water and about 3 drops of a liquid soap. The silver is done. I put multiple coats on, maybe as many as 10. You probably noticed when I was spraying that it was very thin. Again, these metallic paints, they usually have these very fine pieces of metal in them, and I find that it helps to keep them really thinned out, really reduced, so they don't clog up the airbrush. Again, you saw me back flushing. That's kind of keep those metal particles in suspension. So we'll let this dry probably overnight, and then we'll try the Tamiya Tamiya clear blue. Next morning, the silver is thoroughly dry. Now it's time to paint the light blue. For this, I'm going to be using the Tamiya X23 clear blue. It's an acrylic paint. The Tamiya clear blue was not reduced at all prior to airbrushing. It was sprayed full strength straight from the bottle. I got 2 coats on here and it's looking pretty good. What I've discovered in the past is I can't add too many coats of the clear blue or you kind of lose that translucence look. You kind of lose that silver underneath. So I'm going to try a 3rd coat and see if that will get me where I want to be. 3 coats of the clear blue, and it's looking pretty good to me. I think I'm going to stop here. Let it kind of sit, dry, take another look at it, but I think that's the look I want right there. After the 3rd coat, I compared the model to the picture of the real aircraft, and it seemed to me that the blue in the real aircraft was a little bit darker, a little bit deeper. So I added a 4th coat, and this is as far as I'll take it. I think it looks pretty good. I like it, and I think the blue on the whole aircraft, or at least places where there are blue, I think this technique would look really good. That's the good news. The bad news is I only have one bottle of that clear blue. It's a 23 milliliter bottle, and I figure I'm going to need 3 or 4, heck, maybe even 5 bottles to do the whole model. And I enlisted a friend to help me buy some more, and apparently there are only 2 more bottles on the whole island, at least based on the internet, and there are only 2 10 milliliter bottles. So I would need quite a few of those. So I don't know if I can get this clear blue, any more of this clear blue paint. So I basically have 3 options. One, possibly try to order internationally and have it shipped here. That would probably be prohibitively expensive. The other option is there's a paint store that is about an hour and 15 minutes away. They have a pretty good selection of paints. They're mostly automotive paints and house paints, but they have some paints that kind of have this effect to them, this look. I may go there and see what they have, see if I can work something out. And of course, the third option is to just have a whole completely different paint scheme. Choose something different. If I do that, I would have to go in and remove all this. Not a big deal. Just a little bit of sanding would take care of it. But I really do like this blue and yellow paint scheme. I'm hoping I can somehow find a workaround for it. Even though I may have to redo this back, I'm going to go ahead and remove the tape. I'm really excited to see what this whole thing is going to look like. This is my version of an unboxing right here. Normally I like to pull my tapes pretty much right after I have shot the paint, while the paint is still a little bit fresh, a little bit flexible. It seems to help with keeping a sharp edge on the paint. The black has been sitting for a day, but I think it's going to be okay. Notice when I pull away the tape, I'm pulling it back on itself, kind of at a 45-degree angle. That also helps to prevent chipping in the paint, or the paint pulling away from the edge. I guess I didn't get a very good tape right here. That's okay, I can touch that up. I thought I'd done a really good job with sealing this tape. Alright, no biggie. I also need to add a little bit of black right here. Now I think what I'm going to do for this edge is maybe add a little bit of sheathing from electrical wire, maybe some black electrical wire sheathing, and cut it in half and apply it along here. That's not really what I see on the real airplane, but I think it looks nice. So overall, not bad. Let's put the canopy on and see how it'll look. And I believe the canopy and the cockpit are about as far as I can take it for now, until I can get this paint, the blue paint, sorted out, even if I have to change to a different paint scheme. So the pilot I could glue in place, but I'm not, in case I have to remask for this paint and back. So he's just placed in position. Canopy just placed in position. That's as far as I can take it. I think about the only thing now I can work on is I have to revisit the wing fillets and try to get those in place.